Matt Haggman, thank you for coming in.
Jim, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So give me an idea. How's the campaign going right now?
It's going terrific. I mean, we're sensing real momentum right now. You know, this week we knocked on our 40,000th door. You know, when we started this, we said we want to run a different kind of campaign, and a campaign that starts with the community. You know, the best campaigns are about the community, not the candidates. And we have a team of more than 50 campaign fellows, volunteers who are with us, who are out knocking on doors, and I am too.
So give me a sense. What do you, rather than what you're telling them, what are you hearing from people as you're knocking on doors?
What they continue to say is a desire for new leadership. They want new blood. They want new people in our politics. They are sick of the status quo, and they want change in a big way. And we continue to hear that over and over and over again.
So one of the things that I think is interesting is on your website, and so I was going to bring this up later, but you just hit that same line, and that's a line you use a lot.
Sure.
You know, and on your website it says, finally, as we battle discrimination in the workplace, it is critical that we recognize ageism and strengthen the laws already on the books that outlaw discrimination. We all deserve a fair shot at providing a decent life for our families, no matter one's age. And again, you keep hitting this idea of new leadership, fresh ideas. Is that not code for saying Donna Shalala is too old?
Absolutely not. That is absolutely not. And it's not about age at all. In fact, I've had many conversations with my mom about this, who is in her 70s, and she works full time and is extremely active, riding her bike every day. And we've talked about this. What this is about, though, is bringing people in who are not of the current political system, who bring a fresh perspective, who bring new ideas, who bring different life experiences, who bring different personal histories.
So where do you draw that distinction with Donna Shalala than yourself?
Well, we're trying to run a different kind of campaign. Take, for example, we're running a campaign where we're not accepting any money from political action committees, no money from federal lobbyists, no money from special interests such as Big Sugar. Why is that important? Take, for example, guns. Right now in our country, over 90% of Americans, some polls may be in the 80s, but nevertheless, an enormous majority want universal background checks. And yet we see no movement at all right now in Congress. Why? I think it all goes back to campaign finance and how we're electing our political leaders. And so often we've seen, in many cases, we've seen Democrats who are themselves calling for campaign finance reform, but that are still sort of run and are of that system. What we're saying is that we're running for Congress by only accepting money from people, not PACs. And the bet is that if we can get more people elected that way, we'll get a Congress that's acting in the public interest, not in the corporate or special interest.
So why is impeachment such front and center in your race? It seems like you're making a distinction between yourself and Donna Shalala and others when you're talking about impeachment. Why is impeachment such a priority?
I think Donald Trump has committed impeachable offenses. However, as we sit here right now in the middle of the Manafort trial, I do think that we should let this play out. I do think that we should let the Mueller investigation be completed. I think then there'll be a much stronger case to be made, and I think that would be the time to do it. But I think if we were to sit here right now, we can think about obstruction of justice. I do think Donald Trump is engaged in impeachable offenses, but let the Mueller investigation be completed.
ICE is another major issue for you. You seem to hit this very strong. Are there not good men and women in ICE that are trying to do the jobs that they think are best for this country?
Of course there are. Of course there are great men and women who are serving our country with distinction, and I honor them. But what's going on right now with ICE is not us. But getting rid of ICE, though, is one piece of comprehensive
immigration. So you want to just do away with it?
First of all, I think it's important to mention a couple things. This is not about open borders. It's Customs and Border Patrol that secures our borders, not ICE. ICE is purely an internal force. Furthermore, ICE is an experiment. ICE has only been with us for 15 years. This is not like we're getting rid of an agency that's been around for generations. So this is purely an internal force. My view is that we need comprehensive immigration reform. So, in fact, ICE going after those who are undocumented in our country, that becomes moot because we create a pathway to citizenship for all of them. Meanwhile, in my view, we need comprehensive immigration reform, protecting dreamers and creating a pathway to citizenship with those with temporary protected status. Then those that, in terms of the enforcement that's left, I think we have lots of layers of enforcement, whether it's federal, state, or local, that can enforce our immigration laws. And right now there's legislation in Congress to come up with a commission to think about sort of the other things that ICE does and places that can go in our federal government. For example, ICE does things beyond deportations. We've already seen 19 special agents in charge of ICE officers who do that work have asked to be split away. So let's do that.
So give me the reason why someone should not vote for Donna Shalala. She's the front runner. It's not just a matter of you pitching yourself to them. You have to educate yourselves, the voters, about Donna Shalala. What do you think that she's wrong on?
Donna Shalala has had a distinguished career, and I give her great credit. Donna Shalala says she's ready on day one. We say it's time for a new day. I think now more than ever in our politics, we need new people, we need fresh perspectives, we need people with different life experiences grappling with the problems. If we continue to elect put the same people in office, I think we're going to continue to have the same
She's never
results.
held office before, not elected office.
No, but she's been very much involved in our government. And again, we're running a campaign where we give her great credit for the work that she's done. This is not a campaign where we're trying to cut down other people. In fact, our campaign has been intensely focused on voters. That's why we're running a campaign where we've knocked on more than 40,000 doors. But that said, I think now is the time more than ever that we need new people in our politics.
You support Medicare for all.
I do.
Why? Talk to me about and how you're going to pay for that.
Sure. Jim, it's both. It is a moral imperative, but it's also an economic imperative. I mean, the time has come to once and for all deal with healthcare in our country, both because seeing families going bankrupt over a healthcare emergency in their family, but also think about how many small businesses have never been created because someone didn't want to leave their job for fear of losing their health care to go start a small business. To me, Medicare for all, universal health care, is something that will create more jobs and inspire more innovation and inspire more entrepreneurship.
Right now, we're basically an employer-based healthcare system. Yeah. So if currently I have my health insurance through CBS, if Medicare for all comes about, will myself and all the other millions of Americans who currently have jobs lose their employee-based health insurance? And therefore, do we need to rely on the government? And how do you make the case that the government is going to do better by us?
Jim, right now we're in a country where our health care is more than double more expensive than most Western democracies, and our outcomes are much, much worse. We need to do something to fix this. Now, the scenario you talk about as we go through this process, these are things that we'll have to sort out. But what we do know is Medicare is something for those in 65 and over, has provided health care effectively and well. My thought is let's begin to scale it down, 65 to 55 to 45, to begin to get people covered. We can come up with lots of reasons why not to do something. What we know right now is a system that isn't working.
Matt Haggman, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Jim.
All right.